Menu Talk, a joint podcast with Restaurant Business and Nation's Restaurant News. Our guest is Kevin Lee, chef owner of Birdie's and Mott in Oklahoma City. Kevin turned me on to the restaurant scene in Oklahoma City, which sounds incredibly exciting but remains under the radar. His restaurant Birdie's started out as a Korean chicken concept, and it flourished for a year and a half. But the economics didn't add up, and Kevin was working 24/7. So he transitioned it to a modern Korean steakhouse. It's now a popular dining destination in Oklahoma City with a higher check average. And Birdie's success gave Kevin the opportunity in October to open Mott, a modern American steakhouse. At both restaurants, he fuses Asian ingredients like gochujang, soy sauce, fish sauce, chili crisp, and kimchi into steakhouse staples such as crab cakes and Caesar salad. Kevin's culinary talents have landed him in a number of chef competitions on Food Network and earned him national fame. Listen as he describes his culinary journey, how he's cooking the food closest to his heart right now, and what's ahead in 2026. Hi there, I'm Pat Kobe, Senior Menu Editor at Restaurant Business, and I'm here today with Kevin Lee, who's the chef owner of Mott and Birdie's in Oklahoma City. Welcome, Kevin.
Hello, Pat. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, my pleasure. So let's begin by you telling me a little bit about your culinary journey and what brought you into the career that you are pursuing.
I've always loved food, but growing up, I'm not that old. I'm just turning 40 this year. But even when I was growing up in high school, like being a chef wasn't like really a thing. Nobody really said I wanted to be a chef as a teenage kid. But I loved hospitality. I love restaurants. I love hotels. So after graduating high school, I moved to Vegas to attend UNLV as a hospitality management degree. And I started school, and that's where I fell in love with cooking because you have a required culinary class while you're in school, and that was the first time I was immersed into this like a professional kitchen and these stoves and grills and using a real knife and like cutting vegetables and learning how to make stock and like all these things were like very interesting to me, and I love eating food, so making it was like really cool to seeing the process. And I started working at a small Japanese restaurant in Henderson, Nevada. Just I walked in not really because I wanted to be a chef. I just needed a job, honestly, and not even thinking a kitchen job. I was just like, hey, I just need a job, whether it's washing dishes, whether it's busting tables. I was 18 years old at the time. And the owner told me, "Hey, you look like a chef," and he probably just needed a prep cook at the time. But when he said, "You look like a chef," and it intrigued me because I took those classes. I really enjoy being in a kitchen, and the moment he said that, man, even though like I've never done this before, if you think I can do it, like I would love an opportunity to like go in a kitchen and start cooking. And I just fell in love, like everything about the kitchen, the camaraderie of all the guys coming together and going through the service every day and just getting ready from early in the morning to late at night, and like, going out with the guys after work and like being in this brotherhood really intrigued and sparked an interest in the industry. And before I knew it, I've been doing this for over 20 years now, and it really that's where the spark started. And I quickly became executive chef at age 21 at a restaurant called Mizuya in Mandalay Bay. Not because I earned it, because I was just at the right place at the right time. And I worked under some really good chefs, and I knew how to fake it really well. Like I knew a lot, and I started as a sous chef I got hired as a sous chef after working in a local restaurant for a couple of years. And my boss ended up being fired, and I was doing the job for a couple of months while they were searching for executive chef. And he's like, "Hey, you're doing a better job than anybody we've ever hired. So why don't you just take the job?" And I did it for a couple of years, but it's hard because you're not learning if you're the boss. And at age 21, you need to keep learning. So I quickly was like, this isn't for me. I moved on, but I just didn't like the Vegas life. It was too much for the pace I like to live. So I moved to Oklahoma to live with my cousin at the time to kind of be in a city that was growing, and there was a lot of opportunities coming up as a city grows. So, I decided to move here and, and started working for a chef who had an apprenticeship program in French cuisine, apprentice under him, and ended up working for him for, 10 years. And that kind of started going my own way. And here I am 22 years later, like, have two restaurants and still cooking.
Yeah. Well, so you really feel like you're cooking what you love the most now because French cuisine really wasn't something you grew up with, I would imagine, or
Absolutely. Like Japanese and French is, that's kind of like the mecca of culinary. So, that's kind of a lot of chefs start in those cuisines because that's where you learn the basic techniques of cooking and using fresh ingredients and all these things of becoming a real chef. But as I got older and as I matured as a chef, I wasn't cooking the food I really like to eat myself. And as a Korean American guy, I eat Korean food, 90% of my meals, and that's what I truly love to eat, and that's truly my soul food. And 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 now in 2026, Korean cuisine happens to be one of the hottest, cuisine in the world. And I just feel like I just feel like I'm just at the right place at the right time, and to be representing Korean food here in Oklahoma City, I feel lucky and I feel proud to be where I am.
so when you were growing up, were there a lot of Korean restaurants or did you kind of, introduce when you opened Birdie's, you kind of introduced the city to Korean food?
Like everywhere you go, there's always Korean restaurants,
Mm.
where there's a military base in America, wherever there's a military base, I feel like there's always like a small mom and pop Korean restaurant. And when you go to LA, you go to New York, there's a lot of big Korean communities there. So there's a lot of great Korean restaurants in some of the bigger cities. But, Korean restaurants, I feel like is still very foreign to a lot of people. A lot of people didn't grew up going to Korean restaurants. It's something that's very new. And it's just now it's just people have so much interest in Korean food through movies and Korean dramas, and like, people are listening to Korean music, and it's just really cool to see that people have interest in my culture, and they're so intrigued by the ingredients and like kimchi and bulgogi and bibimbap, or like people are just, flocking to the food. They're so because I feel like Korean food is something that's very foreign to most people, but when they actually try it, it doesn't taste so foreign. I think that's why Korean cuisine is so popular, because like things like bulgogi and things like, Korean marinated short ribs, it's just like it's sweet and savory. It's a flavor profile you see in a lot of American cuisines, like, a true American barbecue, and it's just a flavor profile that people are very familiar with. So I think people are shocked when they try Korean food, even though it's something they've never had. It still feels homey to them, and feels something they've had before, and that I think that's why Korean food has become so popular.
So tell me about Birdie's. I mean, you opened that, a few years ago, and it was the first, well, it's a Korean fried chicken place.
Yes.
So how did it start and what is it now?
That's been the most wild 3 years, 4 years of my life. The starting birdies to where it is now. I mean, we started as a Korean fried chicken concept. I have little kids. I have an 8-year-old and a 7-year-old now. At the time, even younger. And I wanted a restaurant where families could take their kids and have a great time. And this Korean fried chicken felt like something that fried chicken is something that's loved by everybody in every culture. So I thought Korean fried chicken was this going to be this concept was going to work in Oklahoma. And, we started it out, and we operated as a fried chicken restaurant for a year and a half. And when you're selling $10 chicken baskets, you have to sell a lot of chicken baskets.
Yeah.
And it just, even though the restaurant felt busy, and we always had, traffic coming through the restaurant, but it just, the revenue just didn't make sense. And, after a year and a half of operating this fried chicken restaurant at the time, I got called in to compete on a show called Tournament Champions, as a qualifier. And I went to this show as kind of like this unknown guy who's been on Food Network a couple of times, but really nobody knew who I was. And I went in, and I had some big upset wins, and I actually ended up winning the qualifier, and ended up going all the way to like the quarterfinals, and I ended up beating Brooke Williamson was the one of the chefs I beat at the time to move on to the next round. And it was just one of those moments, that life-changing moments in my career, because when I came back home after the show, I told my wife, like, I have to be a chef again. Like, this fried chicken concept isn't working. I feel like after competing on that show, it kind of really gave me the confidence to be a chef again. Because after being a chef for over 18 years at the time, or whatever, the 16, 17 years at the time, I just really felt burnt out. I wanted to spend more time with my family, and I felt like I was missing out on a lot of things that, by working a lot and not able to spend time with my kids. And I felt like this was my way out, having a more simple concept that I thought, was going to be easier to operate. But, I was completely wrong. I mean, I worked 7 days a week, lunch and dinner, for a year and a half. Couldn't take a day off because we just didn't have the revenue to hire
Oh,
the people and, have all those things. So, but, through all those things, I've learned so much of, finding my love to being a chef again. And while I was operating as a fried chicken concept, learning how to really run a business of, because everything was so tight. I really had to learn, really tighten down and really learn the business, how to survive. Yeah, and they gave me a good backbone to now run a smoother operation financially, because I really understand the financials part of it too. So, like, even though all these things happened, it was really the rough, 2, 3 years of just figuring out, of being an entrepreneur, being a restaurateur after being only a chef for a very long time. But through all those things, I felt like it had made me who I am now, and it's just been a really unbelievable experience for the last couple of years.
yeah, it sounds it. So Birdie's is now a Korean steakhouse. Is that correct? You transitioned it.
Yes. So once we made the transition, now it's a Korean modern. We call it modern Korean steakhouse, and and we kept the name Birdies because honestly, I couldn't afford to, pay for a new sign or a new name or any of that. I mean,
Yeah.
I literally had a $30,000 budget to change this fried chicken concept into a Korean steakhouse, and we painted the walls, we tiled. I asked my kitchen guys, do you know anybody who knows how to tile? And the guy brings his dad in, and we tile the bar, and we're changing light fixtures ourselves, and we're painting, and it's just one of those things that just, you know, it seems so unreal, because at the time it just seemed like it was such a like unrealistic thing to do, because everybody around me thought I was crazy. Because what are you're changing the concept? What are you doing? Like, how are you gonna have, like, I had plastic chairs in the restaurant at the time, and I couldn't afford to buy new chairs, and one of my buddies just closed down his, like, fine dining Italian restaurant, and it just kind of clicked in my head. I called my buddy. I was like, I'm taking your chairs, I'll pay you later. And it was just one of those things, just really got pieced together in a really in a miracle way. And it was just one of those things, like, my community, the city, my friends and family all came together to really make this all happen. And you know not even 2 years after that, we parlayed that into another restaurant, Mott, that we just opened in October. And it's just been a truly a team effort from everybody who started with me from the very beginning to where I am now.
Did you have investors that kicked in some money, or was it all like self-financed?
So the birdies, we had some investors, but it was more of like they co-signed the loan for me. It was
Okay.
really, I financed everything myself.
Right.
So when things weren't going well, it was a huge burden on me, because I had two of my friends who believed in me enough to co-sign the loan for me, and it was not looking good. So it was really uh, one of those things, they believed in me more than what I was, they really invested in me, not the business, and, like, when we made all that change, and they really stuck with me, and they always, truly believed in that I could make it through. And, it was just one of those things. And now with this new project that I have going on, I have a lot of people who really truly love birdies. People like, I have one of my investors like Chet Holmgren is an NBA superstar basketball player. He became one of my investors, and a lot of my buddies, friends who became really big regulars at birdies wanted to invest in the new concept. So we were quickly able to, after a couple of years of running as a modern steakhouse, now have another modern American steakhouse, Mott, that we just opened. And it's just been a huge we've been, received so well by the city, and we've, feel the love the city has given us through the last couple months. It's just been an unbelievable ride.
Wow, what a great story. So tell me a little bit about the menu at the two different steakhouses. I mean, maybe starting with Birdie's, how is
Yes.
it? What is the Korean influence that comes in?
So modern, Birdie's is a Korean modern steakhouse, and we have a lot of like classic Korean dishes. But it's, we stay true to the true Korean flavors, but by adding a condiment or adding a topping, it truly makes it a little bit different. Like things like kimchi pancake, which is a very traditional recipe, a kimchi pancake. But typically, we in Korean culture we dip it in soy sauce, and but here at Birdie's we dip it in ranch, and and for me, like it really makes sense. And what I'm truly proud of Birdie's restaurant, the truly proud part of Birdie's is when Korean people comes to Birdie's, they truly enjoy the cuisine. And somebody who's never tried Korean food before and come into my restaurant and truly enjoys the cuisine also. And they truly both understand it, and they're both very different ways. But when people eat it, they truly understand what's going on. Because there's a lot of bad fusion out there. Fusion had a bad rep for a long time.
Oh yeah.
I feel like in the culinary world, but these chefs now who actually have the 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 background and the palate to, and people who truly understand the culture's cuisine are now taking the techniques they learn from French and cuisine, and all the things they learn being a real true chef, and using better ingredients and using better techniques and cooking these traditional dishes. And they're just putting these slight twists to these cuisine, but it just now is, one of the hottest things, not just Korean fusion, but you can fusion anything. And that's truly, there's no true, classical cuisine anymore. I feel like when you go to a lot of restaurants, because you're mix matching a lot of ingredients. People are using fish sauce in French restaurants and Italian restaurants, and it just adds another layer of umami to the dish. And using lemongrass in French cuisine, and using gochujang and Italian food. There's so many mesh and spices and ingredients now. It's just so amazing to see that people are just literally picking all the best ingredients from all these different cultures and making this beautiful dishes, and it's unbelievable to see.
And how about Mott? I mean, what are some of your signatures there? I mean, obviously steak is the main feature, but what else?
At Mod, when you go to steakhouse, I feel like crab cakes is always one of those, signature dishes that every steakhouse has. And for me, we want to make like a Korean seafood pancake using crab meat. So, we have, instead of having these lump of crab patty on the plate, we have this nice small pancake with a ton of jumbo lump crab meat in it. So it just has a nice crispy on the outside, nice light crab on the inside with all the scallions and Fresno peppers. And then we finish it with some uni ranch. We take some sea urchin and we make some house-made ranch to add a nice, some saltiness and some umami to the dish and some creaminess. And we do a little soy caramel sauce to add sweetness to the dish also. Then we top it off with like a little cilantro Fresno salad that's tossed with like yuzu vinaigrette, some sesame oil in it to really hit all the crab cake, the notes, but having this really fun, different texture and freshness to the dish also.
Well, that sounds amazing. When I go to a steakhouse, I always order a crab cake because I'm not a huge
Yes.
steak fan. So, I mean, I
Yes.
like
Yeah.
steak,
Yeah.
but I can't eat a whole, huge steak. So I usually get a crab cake.
Absolutely.
And what yours sounds so amazing. I mean, I'm usually like disappointed because some of
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
aren't as good as they sound
Ah,
on the menu, but,
exactly.
but yours sounds
Yeah.
amazing. But
And what's been a huge hit at Mott is our Caesar salad. And the Caesar salad, every steakhouse has their version of Caesar salad. And here we use like a little gem lettuce to have a more crispier texture to the greens. but we shave it really thin to almost so you can really have this real thinly shaved lettuce, and we make the Caesar dressing using fish sauce instead of anchovies, and we use like excessive amount of Parmesan cheese that's been lightly feathered, and that just completely covered the whole salad. And instead of using croutons, I make these chili crisp using like fried shallots and fried garlic and some chili flakes and ginger and garlic to really give that crunch, like a crouton texture.
Wow, that sounds amazing too.
Yeah, yeah.
I wish I think I'm gonna go to Oklahoma City just to go to your restaurant now.
Well, now you need to fly into Oklahoma City, and I'll give you a little culinary tour around the city. And we truly
Yeah,
have some great restaurants here, and it's been really fun to see because as city grows, I feel like the first thing that grows with the city is kind of the culinary scene, and it's really
right.
fun to see this. As you know, we just won the NBA championship last year here with Oklahoma City Thunder, and that's been a huge boost to the city. And now
Mm,
people are coming into the city from different cities to watch the games, and we had the U.S. Olympics here in L.A. in 2028, right?
okay.
And Oklahoma City is actually one city outside of LA that are hosting some games. So we have the all the softball events are going to be held here in Oklahoma City because we have the Women's College World Series stadiums here. So all the softball games for the Olympic Games will be here in Oklahoma City, and also all the like the river sports like the rowing and all those things are in Oklahoma City also.
Oh,
So
that's really interesting. I didn't know that.
yeah, so it's really exciting because nobody else really knows about it except for Oklahoma because we know about it because for us it's a huge deal. But as these outside people are finally getting chances to come to Oklahoma City, and once people are here, they see the charm of the city, and
Mm,
people are so nice, and genuinely it's just a fun city to be. And I love bringing chefs who live in Vegas and Seattle, New York, and bring them in for collab dinners, and they're truly amazed how wonderful it is to be here in the city now.
yeah. So, I mean, I mean, you've been working for over 20 years. I mean, when you were growing up there, was the restaurant scene like it is now, or is it really like evolved since then?
Absolutely not. I mean, the restaurant scene here forever was Olive Garden, Red Lobster, just chain restaurants, and there weren't really a lot of great restaurants. I mean, we've had, in the late 90s, there's some chef-owned restaurants that did really well, but from then to now, there was a huge gap of like it was mostly like big companies, not really chef-owned restaurants. Just it was always kind of like local big restaurant groups. It's basically two, three restaurant groups owned the whole city when it
Yeah.
came to restaurants, or it was big chains. So there weren't really any like chef-driven restaurants until just recently. And now we have a restaurant called Sedalia's, which is like a seafood restaurant here in the city that's very popular. Now we have a Laotian restaurant called Madar Lao and a restaurant called Bar Sen, which are very popular here also, who are both of my really close friends who are chef-owned restaurants. And so now I feel like with three of us kind of solidifying ourselves in the city, that a lot of other chefs are now getting the confidence to try new things also. So I feel like in the next 5-10 years the city is going to really start to blossom. Now we're seeing chefs being able to own restaurants, and to see them being able to be successful.
Wow, that's really exciting. I'm so glad we could put Oklahoma City in the spotlight because haven't actually interviewed a chef from Oklahoma City. Although I
I
do
always try to
remember,
represent when I can.
yeah, no, you're doing a great job. So what's next for you? I know you just opened Mod and you are very busy with two restaurants, but do you think you'll do more TV competitions, or are you doing any like things like the Aspen Food and Wine Festival or any of those kinds of things?
We have a lot of things coming up. I'm actually leaving for Mohegan Sun next week. They have a big Mohegan Sun food and wine over there. I'm doing an event with Shota Nakajima over there. And in the couple weeks after that, in February, we have South Beach Food and Wine.
Oh, you're going
I'll
to
be
the
doing, yeah, I'll be doing a couple events there, doing a dinner again with one of my great friends, Shota, not Shota, Chef Shota. He's been a great friend of mine, and we've gotten to know each other really well. So I'm doing another event with him there, and we're also doing the grand tasting for the Tournament of Champions. So that's well, there'll
cool.
be like 32 of us there. who've been on Tournament Champions. So if you go to that event, you'll be able to see every single one of us who's been on, Tournament Champions. So that's always a really fun event. And, of course, I'm always competing on Food Network. So, I got some guys' grocery games coming out. There's a lot of other shows that I've filmed already. So, look out for me on competing and trying to, win something. I've always done pretty well on a lot of these shows, but I've never actually won anything yet. So I'm always trying to, win a big show on Food Network, trying to compete, trying to get better, trying to learn from all these chefs we're always competing against. So, always, and maybe I'm trying to write a cookbook. So there's so many things going on in my life, but super blessed and thankful and grateful for everything that is going on.